a young woman is left for dead in the Colorado wilderness.
In addition to the multiple stab wounds, she was the victim of sexual assault.
No clothes, no identification. On a case like this, where do we start?
Even finding the crime scene requires a leap of faith.
I'm not a mountaineer or a rock climber. You don't really think about that. You just do it.
Once he's fulfilled his fantasy, he threw her lifeless body down this cliff.
A deeply disturbed man is walking among us.
You can just picture somebody like a Ted Bundy who can live two lives, and the people who know him have no idea.
And it's up to Detective Joe Kenda to unmask him.
He took my hands. He was becoming physically excited at the idea of telling me. Holy smokes. It is a startling moment when you confront insanity living and breathing in front of you, and he's holding your hands.
Gold Camp Road is a 25-mile stretch of dirt road that goes out of the west end of Colorado Springs.
It's very curvy, has steep cliffs. You have to be pretty brave to drive that road at night.
This is it?
Well, that's what the sign says.
It's a beautiful drive, but at nighttime, it also has a special draw. There's legends that the ghosts of miners from back in the 1800s can be heard.
Man, it's dark out there.
Yeah, I mean, how are we even gonna see the ghosts?
Don't be such a skeptic, Lucas. Maybe we'll hear them.
They came around the bend and there was something in the road.
What in the world is that?
Lo and behold, here's a lady, a naked lady. Blood-soaked from head to toe. This is more terrifying than finding any ghost. She needs help, and she needs help now.
It was 1977, and I had been a detective for about a year. Back then, you didn't have a partner, but you were working with your own experience and by your wits.
On this particular morning, Detective Kenda is next up in the rotation to get a case.
Kenda, got something for you.
Sure. So what do we got?
A family picked up an injured woman last night, took her to St. Francis. Doctors there think someone tried to kill her. That's where you come in.
Yes, sir.
There was a victim who was young, probably between the ages of 18 and 21. The doctors admitted her as a Jane Doe to the intensive care unit.
On a case like this, where do you start your investigation? Well, you need to go to the hospital. That's where the victim's at. You've got no crime scene to go to.
Are you the detective?
Yes, Joe Kenda.
Hi, Dr. Langstaff. She's lucky she's alive.
This victim had been beaten, had been stabbed 6 times, and had been savagely sexually assaulted.
You know, there's something else. It may not be related, but we all noticed. It looks like someone sawed off a chunk of her hair with a knife. It's too weird to be a haircut.
Yeah, that could be helpful. Could have been taken by her attacker.
People who commit the crimes of sexual assault take souvenirs to relive the moment. If he took the hair, he kept the hair.
We have a name yet?
No, she's unconscious still. To be honest, she might not make it.
With the victim unable to describe her assailant, Kenda's only way forward is to pinpoint the exact location where the crime occurred.
So now my next stop is the Gold Camp Road. What can I learn going up there, if anything?
The Piazza family have agreed to take investigators back to the scene where they found this young lady.
So she was walking down the road towards us and she collapsed. It's right about here. God, it was terrifying.
I bet. You know, you just might have saved her life. You should be proud.
Yeah, we just did what anyone would have done, you know?
Now, do you mind waiting by the car? We're gonna have a look around.
Yeah.
Another one there.
You can still see some blood there. There are severe drop-offs to one side of that road, and there appears to be blood on some of the rocks down that embankment. So did our man throw her over this cliff after he assaulted her? It looks as if he might have. She somehow then managed to crawl up that embankment because when those passersby found her, she was on the road.
The blood trail suggests the true nature of the attack on Kenda's Jane Doe, but he will need additional physical evidence in order to identify the perpetrator. Kenda wonders if that evidence might be found in the ravine below.
If he disposed of her, what else did he dispose of?
Detective Kenda, dispatch.
Dispatch.
Can you patch me through to the fire department's mountain rescue team?
10-4, detective.
So how far down do you think you need to go?
I don't know exactly. I just need to follow the blood trail and see where it takes me.
Okay, well, let's go get you brigged up.
You can't just step off the side of the road and start walking down there.
I'm not a mountaineer or a rock climber, but you don't really think about that. You just do it.
Here goes nothing.
Joe actually rappelled down the side of that cliff there to see what evidence could be found. You know, you could take a tumble and not stop falling for 150 feet. It's very treacherous.
I've carefully worked my way down to where I saw the blood. And I work my way down a little further, and I see more blood.
Anything?
Negative, just more blood.
You okay down there?
No, I'm all good.
I see more blood against a very large rock. So that's the stopping point. She ran into that, and it prevented her from falling any further down this embankment, or she would have never been found. We would have found bones, maybe, at some point.
Joe described after rappelling down, seeing handprints of blood on rocks and whatnot as this young lady clawed her way back to the top of that road.
Surveying the base of the ravine, Kenda finds nothing other than the bloody handprints.
There was absolutely nothing. No fragments of clothes, no shoes, no anything. Blood and blood only. I am left with absolutely nothing to lead me to the identity of a very sick and dangerous individual.
All right, I'm coming back up.
I know he's still out there. He's enjoying his memory of this enough to want to experience it again. What can I do to stop that? At the moment, I can't do a thing. I'm a young detective who got assigned to this case of a woman being assaulted and stabbed and thrown off a cliff. Now what?
Hey, Kenda. How's the new case going?
Basically, no physical evidence at the crime scene, no witnesses, no victim ID, and she might not make it. That's my guess. Our guy's gonna do it again.
And he just shook his head like, well, that's not good. No, it's not good.
All right. Keep at it.
Miss Kenda.
Hey, Kenda, Dr. Langstaff at St. Francis. Your girl's awake.
My only hope is that she remembers enough to lead me to whoever this is before he does it again.
Speaking with the staff at St. Francis, Kenda learns his Jane Doe is in fact 20-year-old Caitlin Bennett.
Caitlin, Detective Kenda. Mind if I ask you a few questions?
I just thought you'd never get here. I want you to lock that bastard up.
She's alert, she is talkative, and she's obviously one tough little chick. And you could see her demeanor was the reason she survived.
First, I need some basics. Is there anyone, family members that I could notify, let them know that you're okay?
Not really. I'm on my own.
She was having family problems, fighting with her mother, and so she moved out of the house. She really didn't have anything to live on.
In order to survive, Caitlin turned to prostitution.
Society has always looked down upon people who choose prostitution as a method of survival. I say to all of those people, they wouldn't be so critical if they ever had been in their shoes. There is an enormous occupational hazard associated with being a prostitute. You're going to get into a vehicle with someone you have no idea who he is and no idea what his intentions are.
For now, I need your help finding out who did this to me.
I'll do whatever it takes. Just find him.
She, fortunately for me, had an excellent memory of this entire event.
This guy in a white pickup just pulled up. He had one of those camper cells in the back.
You looking for a good time?
That's exactly what I'm looking for. Come on in.
I mean, he seemed nice enough. I didn't think much of it.
Do you remember what he looked like?
White guy. That hair. He had red hair.
That's something that is easily spottable, and so fortunately, that was something to go on.
He said his wife was home. So he wanted to drive and park somewhere so we could have some privacy. So we drove to Gold Camp Road.
She was not alarmed in any way. He was nice, told her how pretty she was, and general banter as they're driving a short distance away till he got into an area that was fairly secluded. And then he said to her, let's get in the back of the truck where we have more room.
He opened the tailgate. Started shoving stuff aside, and I climbed in. He must have whacked me in the head with something, because everything went black.
When she awakened, she was naked, bleeding, grievously hurt, and laying against a boulder 100 feet down the ravine from where she had been in that truck.
And I thought, I'd be damned if this is how I die.
She was going to live, no matter what. She's going to make every effort to survive. You have to admire that. You don't see that very often. I had never seen it to that level.
It's the kind of thing where your survival instinct takes over.
She might have been easy to pick up, but she wasn't going to be easy to put down.
You already gave me his description. What about his truck? You said white, camper shell. Was there anything else distinctive about it?
No, not really. When I was climbing in the back, I mean, the last thing I remember seeing were just a bunch of tools.
Tools? What kind of tools?
Like wrenches, big red ones. There was a wheel in front of them. It was like 2 or 3 feet long.
Okay, Caitlin. Thank you. I will find him. I promise you.
So now I've got something to do, and I've got places to go. The first step is to go to South Nevada Avenue to find the girls who were with her when she got in that white truck.
We'll run back one next time, huh? Thanks a lot, jackass. You just cost me a customer.
You know a girl named Caitlin Bennett?
Yeah, we know Katie. She doing okay?
She's in bad shape. She's gonna be all right. Did you happen to see who she left with yesterday?
He was driving a white truck. Never seen him before.
Did you get a look at him? License plate, anything?
No.
Thanks for your help.
So maybe this is his first time. We just need to find him before he tries his second one.
The chances of him showing up back here on South Nevada are pretty high. So you want to continue to pull surveillance to see if this particular truck pulls back up.
So I instructed the sector officers who work the South Nevada area. I got a white truck with a camper shell and a red-headed white male driver. You see that guy, you stop, you identify him.
All right, this looks like our guy. Let's go.
These people develop an appetite for this. Once they commit it once, they want to do it again.
Don't move! You see your hand? Hold it right there!
We are looking for this white truck and a red-headed driver to put a stop to what I suspect will be a pattern of extreme violence if we don't find it.
Let me see your hands!
Hey, man, it's cool. I was just asking one of these girls for directions.
The driver was identified, and it's obvious he wasn't the guy we're looking for.
Directions, huh? Did you get lost on your way to church?
No.
Sorry, it's a false alarm. Should go ahead and get out of here.
All right.
I'm gonna head back to the office, leave this to you and your guys.
Okay, Joe. I'll call you if we find something.
After coming up empty, Kenda hands over surveillance duties to the Vice Squad and heads back to the office to take another look at the victim's statement.
We're back to her description of the contents of the back of the truck. She said he had tools in there. They were red and they were 2 or 3 feet long, and they had like a wheel at the front. So I did a quick little drawing. Now, as a young policeman, married with 2 children, I made little or no money. I was a do-it-yourself guy. I had a very good understanding of tools, and I used them all the time. Well, that's a pipe wrench. So I began thinking about that When she described 3 feet long wrenches, pipe wrenches, a homeowner would never use a wrench that big. That's a professional tool. The only person who would ever use something that large is a plumber. So who are we looking for now? I think I'm looking for a red-headed plumber.
Hey, Bob, you want to hand me the yellow pages?
Yeah. There you go. You don't call a private investigator, have him solve the case for you?
No, I'm just going to call some plumbers.
Plumbers?
Yeah, Sergeant, I'm onto something. Just you wait.
All right. Let me know if you need any help.
Colorado Springs at that time was about 200,000 people. There were plumbing companies around, but the big ones all had company trucks. They were all clearly marked. So as a process of elimination, I eliminated the big companies, and I started looking and driving around small plumbing shops. Most of the smaller companies were in the downtown and near west side part of the city, so you have to start someplace.
Yeah, I'm doing some renovations on my kitchen.
Okay.
Long story short, I want to move the sink from one side of the room to the other.
Right, sure. I can help with that. Just let me grab a form real quick.
You know, it's kind of a big job. You don't happen to have a partner, do you?
No, it's just me.
Maybe I'll find something of interest, maybe I won't, but I'm going to at least try that.
How you doing? I came by the other day to talk to a guy about a bathroom remodel. I was wondering if you had the estimate ready.
Do you know who you talked to?
I can't remember his name. It was a redheaded guy.
We don't have any red-haired guys here.
Are you sure about that?
I've been here a long time, yeah.
I appreciate the help.
Anytime.
You want to see if anybody that matches this suspect's description maybe works for them. A white guy with red hair. Well, he contacted several plumbing companies and nobody fitting that description worked there.
So I drove around 5 or 6 different little places, and I finally drive around a 7th place. And it's a small plumbing shop, and there's a white pickup outside with a camper shell on it. And I'm thinking, maybe, just maybe, this is the magic truck. Wouldn't that be nice?
You.
Yeah, I got this leaky pipe that I need to have fixed, and this place was recommended by one of my friends. Are any of your plumbers in?
No, they're both out at the moment.
Well, I noticed that white truck outside. Does that belong to one of your guys?
Yeah, it belongs to my son Charles. This is our family business. He must be out with his father.
Well, he's on a job, but he's going to be back here fairly soon.
I can tell him to stop by if you'd like to leave your name.
No, that's okay. I'll stop back. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Ma'am, by any chance does your son have red hair?
Yes. Do you know him?
No, I just heard a lot about him. Thanks again.
I am making progress. In the case of the attempted murder of Caitlin Bennett, I have placed a local plumber in the crosshairs of my scope. Let's see if he's got the right truck and the right contents.
Based on the auto registration for the truck parked at the plumbing shop, Kenda confirms his suspect's identity, 23-year-old Charles Warren.
All right, Mr. Warren, let's see what you've been up to.
I check the record, and I find nothing. There is 0 information in the ID and record section on anyone by that name at that age. He has the cleanest possible record. He doesn't have one. He's never even gotten a parking ticket.
With nothing in Charles Warren's record to suggest he's a violent criminal, Kenda is hoping he can use a recent photo of him to help Caitlin Bennett ID her assailant. But there's no photo of Warren on file. At least not yet.
Hello? Judges have no difficulty signing it because you're not really doing anything invasive. So I take this court order, I drive back to the plumbing shop.
Charles Warren?
The one and only. What can I do for you?
Oh, Charles, this is the man I was telling you about, the one with the leaky pipe.
Man, I have more pressing needs with your son. Mr. Warren, I have a court order for your photograph in connection to an attempted murder investigation.
What?
Seriously? Is this some kind of joke?
No joke.
He is shocked that the police want to talk to him.
Well, sure. You can take my photo. You don't need a court order. I didn't do anything.
Go ahead and take your hat off.
Is this really necessary?
It's okay, Mom. It's just a mistake.
Turn to the side.
Oh, heaven's sakes.
I mean, is there any questions I can answer for you? What's this about?
We're all done here. Thanks for your time.
And I'm not questioning him. I don't want to yet. I want more. I thank him for his cooperation. I'll be in contact if it's necessary.
Caitlin, I'm gonna show you some pictures. And I want you to take your time. Tell me if you recognize any of these people on the sheet of paper, okay?
I think that's him.
And she was pointing at the photograph of Charles Warren.
Well, I need you to be sure. Is that the guy that hurt you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's him.
Great. Thank you.
I didn't walk out of that hospital, I floated. It was euphoric, because now it's warrant time.
Four fall one requesting backup.
As soon as we get that warrant signed, we're going to hit that house.
I have 3 officers with me, and I have a warrant in my hand, and I have a warrant to search the premises. So we go there, and we knock on the door.
Police, open up!
What's going on? Charles? What's going on? Charles!
Don't move! Let me see your hands! Stand up. Up against the wall. You're under arrest for the attempted murder of Caitlin Bennett.
I didn't do anything.
And there is total shock, total, absolute shock. The mother is shaking. The father is staring at us. The wife doesn't know what to do. The little child is starting to cry.
Let him go!
It's okay, honey.
Stay seated.
It's okay. I promise. I don't know why they think I did something. I didn't.
It's got to be incomprehensible. And can you imagine being the wife?
It's okay. It's okay.
You know, thinking, what? Why are they coming after my husband?
All right, I'll keep my eyes on them while you guys do your search.
Do you really have to go through my things?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's okay, baby.
Anything?
Not yet.
You check the closet?
No.
I'll check.
Police are hoping to find bloody clothes or any other personal effects tying Charles Warren to the attack on Caitlin Bennett.
You got anything? No, I got nothing.
So we are searching this whole house, and we find nothing. The officers come out and report that they find no clothing anywhere, closets, under the beds, in the dressers, any place they look.
Detective. We didn't find anything.
It's got to be something.
We tore this place apart. I mean, you sure we have the right guy?
All right, you stay here. I'm gonna keep looking.
Okay.
In his bedroom is a standard man's 6-drawer dresser. People hide things in predictable places. They don't think they do, but they do. Even burglars know that.
Hey, let's check these again. Let's be extra thorough.
You don't want to go into somebody's house and like throw the clothes all over the floor. No, you pull the drawers out, you look through the drawer to see if any evidence is there.
I pull out the top drawer, nothing. I pull out the second drawer.
Bingo.
And taped to the back of the drawer is hair, and it's her color.
Oh, my.
Charles, you son of a bitch. Here we are. I've got you by the throat, and I'm not going to let go. After this long, prolonged investigation, we now have critical physical evidence that 23-year-old Charles Warren is solely responsible for the attempted murder and rape of Caitlin Bennett.
But Kenda's work is far from over.
Now, this is prior to DNA being available.
This guy's a sick son of a bitch. We gotta do everything we can to make sure we build a strong case against him. We gotta get the confession.
I'll get it.
Charles immediately proceeds into absolute denial.
I didn't do any of these things you keep saying. You don't understand. I have a wife and child. Why would I put any of that at risk?
He's trying to convince us that he's a good family man, a good worker, a good citizen of the community.
And to all outward appearances, Charles seems just that.
The problem I'm having, Charles, is we found the hair of the victim in your bedroom. It's kind of odd, isn't it?
And I saw a flash of anger in him that I had not seen.
I told you not to touch my things.
All of a sudden, he was somebody else. And he caught himself. And he went back to innocence.
Why don't you tell me how the hair got there?
How would I know? I bought the dresser at a garage sale. You really think I took the whole thing apart when I got it home?
Charles Warren maintains his innocence for the next 2 hours. And the next.
I don't know any of
And the next.
And he was continuing with the denial, and I didn't see the anger anymore. I didn't see that again.
Charles, you take this to trial, they're going to destroy you. This is your only chance to get a lighter sentence, is if you cooperate with me. Excuse me for a second.
So my boss looked at me, was holding up his wrist and pointing at his watch, and I knew what he meant.
You know what time it is? You're pushing 6 hours here.
I'm close, Sarge.
There is no time frame for an interrogation, but if you go over the 8 hours, the defense attorney will make the argument to a judge that they coerced a confession.
I don't want to give his attorney any ammunition to shoot any holes in our case.
I know I can get this. He's starting to crack. I can see it in his eyes. I just need a little more time.
You got 30 more. Don't make me regret this.
I won't.
So Joe goes back in and totally changes the way the interrogation is being conducted.
And I said,
Charles, what do you like to think about during the day?
and he says, what do you mean?
I mean, people have their favorite dreams they like to think about. Daydreams. Maybe being a football player, movie star, maybe having a lot of money. What's your favorite dream?
And his whole demeanor changed into something else, really scary. And he turned his head and he said, "Oh, I can't tell you that." "Well, hello again, sir. I haven't seen you since you were angry."
Why can't you tell me?
Because you'll get mad at me?
No, I won't. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff I've heard in here. You'd be surprised.
For some reason, at that moment, Charles took the clue that, here is someone I could share this with. Here is someone who will appreciate my cleverness.
He was becoming physically excited at the idea of telling me.
All right. I'll tell you what I think about every day.
He took my hands.
My dream is making love to women in their own blood while they're dying. Haven't you ever thought about that?
I wanted to do two things at that moment. I wanted to put my gun in his mouth and pull the trigger, and then I wanted to go take a shower. But I can't do that. And I still wanted to get a statement of him if I could.
Haven't you ever thought about that?
And yeah, sure I have. Why don't you walk me through what happened?
Charles admitted to me it was a sexual fantasy that it had for years. It was simple. He didn't have to use force. She opened the door and got in. The perfect victim, a volunteer.
Just up this way a bit.
Okay, yeah.
Just give me a minute.
When he tells her to get in the back of the truck where they have more room, that's step one of the plan. Let me get her in the back where I have my toys. And that's what he did.
Back here?
Yeah, I just had to clear some stuff.
Yeah, if you say so.
When he strikes her over the head and renders her unconscious, and he rips her clothes off, she is the fantasy. He then can do whatever he wishes with this unconscious female for his own sexual gratification. How sick is that? It's as sick as it gets. He believes after he completes this attack that he has killed his victim. He disposes of her over the side of this cliff and goes home with his souvenir stuffed in his jeans, her hair.
It's a hunter's trophy, an item that represented his complete power and his ability to be victorious in subduing his victim.
He liked to touch it at night. He'd get up and open the door and touch her hair. Holy smokes. While he's going through all this, I'm just sitting there looking at him. And at the very end of it, he said,
"But you know what?
What's that, Charles?
Next time, I'll make sure she's dead."
Fortunately for the rest of the world, in your particular case, there isn't going to be a next time.
The charges that were filed was the attempted murder, kidnapping, sexual assault. He decided that he was going to plead guilty, but it was obvious that we got a person here that's got some real mental issues.
Warren was examined by a panel of psychiatrists. All concluded that he was textbook insane. At the end of all of this, he was committed to the Colorado State Mental Hospital.
It's possible Charles Warren.
They find her on a February morning in 1992 on the side of a two-lane highway that cuts through the dark pines of western Washington like a scar. Fog lies low and heavy over the asphalt, swallowing sound, distorting distance, turning the world into a gray tunnel where shapes appear too late and stay too long. Headlights slice through it, useless and weak. A long-haul trucker thinks he sees trash at first, a bundle of clothes dumped near the guardrail, just another ugly mark on a quiet road. He almost keeps driving. Almost. Something in the shape of it makes his gut turn. He pulls over, sighs, grabs his flashlight, steps into the cold air. The beam lands on skin. And Silver Ridge will never be the same again. She is lying half on, half off the brush, her body carefully placed, not thrown. One arm extended, fingers brushing the wet grass, nails clean, almost deliberate, like she's reaching for something only she can see. Her hair fans around her head, damp with mist, not rain. One shoe is missing. Her face is turned slightly toward the sky, eyes closed, as if someone laid her down and smoothed her features like a sheet. There is no blood pool, no obvious wound, no dragged trail in the gravel, no tire marks screeching behind her. It looks wrong in the quiet, wrong in the fog, wrong on this road. Later, when they write reports and box evidence and talk about it in low voices at cheap coffee machines, they will use the same word again and again. Staged. The call goes out at 6:17 a.m., a calm voice over the radio cracking the calm morning. Unidentified female, possible homicide, Highway 7 northbound, mile marker 42. Within 20 minutes, patrol cars line the shoulder, blue and red spinning through the fog like warning flares. Sheriff's deputies move slow, lights in their hands, boots sinking into wet gravel. The first deputy on scene takes one look, swears under his breath, and calls for the sheriff. This isn't a hit and run. This isn't a body dumped in panic. This is something else. Something careful. Her name arrives a few hours later when a nurse's aide fails to show up for the morning shift at Mercy Ridge Hospital and a friend calls it in. Allison Kearns, 24, nursing student, dependable, never late, never no call, no show. Her supervisor shrugs at first. People oversleep. Tires blow. But unease creeps in when she checks the employee lot and sees Allison's car sitting in its usual spot, parked neat between the yellow lines, windows up, doors locked. Keys still in her purse on the passenger seat. The hospital calls the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office calls the deputy on Highway 7. The deputy glances at the photo on the hospital ID and feels his stomach drop. The fog thickens around the body as if the forest is listening. Sheriff Henry Mercer arrives in a heavy coat and heavier mood, coffee cooling in his hand, hat pulled low against the damp. He kneels beside Allison's body, notes the position, the lack of mud on her clothes, the way her socks are almost pristine despite the wet ground. He sees the thin red line at the base of her throat, faint, almost ghostly, not the brutal mark of a rope or a hand, more like a shadow of pressure that shouldn't be there. The coroner will later call it inconclusive. Mercer calls it wrong. This is a crime scene built like a photograph. Clean, controlled, designed to confuse. The media descends by noon, their vans and cameras turning the shoulder into a circus. True crime is still a thing of newspapers and evening broadcasts, but the phrase is already forming in someone's head. Washington cold case. Missing nurse found dead near highway. Community in shock. They interview co-workers at Mercy Ridge, neighbors in her small apartment complex, the barista who remembers her ordering black coffee with too much sugar. Everyone says the same thing. Quiet, kind, careful. Not the type to party, not the type to disappear, not the type to have enemies. They talk about her laugh. They talk about the way she always stayed late to cover extra shifts. They talk about how she was supposed to graduate that spring. Mercer walks the scene 3 times, 4, 5, drawing invisible lines with his eyes from her body to the road, to the woods, back to the road. There are no obvious tire tracks. The ground is too wet. The fog ate the sound and the clues. If she was killed somewhere else and brought here, he thinks, why no drag marks? Why no scuffing? If she was killed here, where is any sign of a struggle? No broken branches, no scattered belongings. Her purse is missing. Her other shoe is missing. Her life is missing, sealed behind closed lips and closed eyes. He stands there and thinks the question that will haunt him for decades. How do you fight someone and leave the world this neat? The autopsy gives them almost nothing. Time of death somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m., toxicology clean, no drugs, no alcohol, no obvious blunt force trauma, no stab wounds, no gunshot. The cause is listed as asphyxiation, but the how is a blank line, a shrug in Latin. There are no defensive wounds on her hands, no bruises that tell a straightforward story. There is skin under her nails, but it's hers. The only foreign material is a trace of cedar pollen and a faint residue that could be from the forest floor, or could be absolutely nothing. The coroner closes the file with a sigh that sounds like failure. Silver Ridge, population just under 9,000, doesn't know what to do with a story like this. They've had accidents, bar fights, a handful of domestic calls that escalated too far. But this is different. This is a young woman taken from her routine, her car quietly put back like someone returning stolen property, her body arranged just off a road everyone uses but no one thinks about. The churches fill up the following Sunday. Parents drive their daughters to and from work. People start locking doors twice, 3 times, even in daylight. The diner plays the news on mute, the headline crawling across the bottom of the screen like an accusation. Washington, 1992, mystery death rattles small town. At the sheriff's office, the investigation tries to outrun the fear. Detectives map Allison's last 48 hours and hit walls. She finished her shift at 11:02 p.m. Colleagues say she was tired, but fine. She joked about the night shift, said she was going to sleep for 100 years when she got home. Security footage shows her leaving the hospital alone, walking to her car, getting in, driving off. Her apartment complex camera catches her pulling into the lot at 11:21 p.m. That's where the story should end. Instead, there's a gap. Her car sits. She doesn't go inside. No one sees her again until the trucker stops on Highway 7 just after dawn. Neighbors heard nothing. No engine, no raised voices, no footsteps on the stairs. One tenant says she thought she heard a car door close quietly around midnight, but she isn't sure. The night was cold. Windows were shut. Someone suggests she went back out with a friend, a secret boyfriend, someone she didn't tell people about. Her phone records show no late-night calls, no strange numbers, no dating apps. It's too early for that world. Just a few pages of ordinary. Calls to her mother, her sister, a pharmacy, the hospital, a pizza place she never picked up from. Mercer looks at the phone bill like it might suddenly rearrange into a confession. He focuses on the one odd habit all her friends mention. Friday nights at the Overlook. a cliffside pull-out a few miles beyond town, where the road hugs the edge of a valley and the river threads silver below. She went there alone, parked, sat in her car, and watched the lights of Silver Ridge from a distance. Some people said she brought a journal. Others said she just listened to the radio. No one ever went with her. No one knows why that spot. The overlooks becomes a point on the map circled in red. Deputies canvass. They talk to teenagers who sneak up there to drink, to couples who park there for privacy, to a retired lineman who drives that section every night out of habit. No one reports seeing Allison there on the night she vanished. No one reports seeing anyone suspicious at all. Weeks pass, then months. Tips come in, dry up, come in, dry up. A man in a bar claims he saw Allison with a stranger the week before she died, but his story collapses when he can't remember what day or what she was wearing. Another caller swears the killer is a drifter living out of a van near the rest stop. Deputies investigate, find a man who's guilty of nothing more than being poor and weird. The case file thickens with false leads, dead ends, hopeful scribbles in the margins that trail off into nothing. Reporters chase other stories. Silver Ridge tries, fails, and tries again to return to normal. The file is still open when winter turns to spring, but everyone feels the temperature dropping. They have no weapon, no suspect, no meaningful physical evidence. The only fingerprints at the scene belong to the first responders and the trucker, all logged and cleared. The photographs, those glossy, harsh flashes of reality, get reviewed again and again. A body among the pines. A quiet road. A fallen log in the background, its bark damp and dark. The old Polaroids sit in a cardboard box in 1992, gathering dust, while the phrase begins to settle over the town like a second fog. Cold case. Years slide by. Sheriff Mercer retires, the weight of Allison's file heavier than his badge. A new sheriff takes over, then another. The world changes. DNA becomes sharper, databases grow, crime shows teach viewers the language of forensics. Silver Ridge gets broadband, new chain stores on the edge of town, a remodeled emergency room at Mercy Ridge. But in a back room at the sheriff's office, under humming fluorescent light, a photograph from 1992 still shows a body at the edge of a road and a log in the background that no one looks at twice. The unsolved death of Allison Kearns fades from front-page horror to whispered legend, a cautionary tale parents use when daughters come home late. The question never leaves, it just gets quieter. Who took her? How? Why here? Why like that? And then, nearly 3 decades later, in the spring of 2021, a plain white envelope slides through the mail slot at the Silver Ridge Sheriff's Office. No sender, no return address, just the department's name handwritten in block letters. The receptionist opens it between coffee and emails, expecting junk or a complaint. Instead, she finds a single sheet of paper folded twice. No greeting, no threat, no signature. Just one sentence in black ink, letters so careful they look carved. You missed something in the photograph. The receptionist stares at the sentence for a long time, long enough for her coffee to cool, long enough for her pulse to pick up without understanding why. You missed something in the photograph. It isn't overtly threatening. It isn't obscene. It's worse. It's specific. It knows. She folds the page back along its creases, walks it down the hall to the cold case room, and hands it to the one person in the building who spends more time looking backward than forward. Detective Clara Voss reads the sentence twice, then looks up, eyes narrowing. She is in her 30s, transferred in from Tacoma a few years earlier, just young enough to have heard the Allison Kearns story as a whispered warning when she was a kid. Don't hitchhike, don't stop on dark roads, don't stay out late. Someone will put you by Highway 7. She'd driven past that mile marker on her way into town, her first week on the job, felt the prickle along her arms without knowing why. Now she knows. The cold case board behind her tells the whole story in pinned photos and faded printouts. Allison's smiling hospital ID, a rough map of the highway, autopsy summary, grainy shots of a body in the fog. And somewhere in there, if the letter is to be believed, is something they all missed. She doesn't say much, just takes the letter, nods, and crosses the room to the old metal filing cabinets that hold the town's nightmares. The drawer sticks. She yanks it open. Box 92-07, Kearns, Allison. The cardboard is soft at the corners, peeled tape marked with 3 different sheriffs' handwriting over the years. She sets the box on the table with the care of someone placing an urn. Inside, bagged clothing, reports, cassette tapes of interviews, and a stack of photographs in a paper envelope, yellowed with age. She slides the photos out one by one, scene wide, scene mid-range, scene close-up, the girl in the ditch, the patterns of pine needles, the curve of the guardrail, the fallen log at the edge of frame. "You missed something in the photograph," she murmurs, scanning the prints. The letter didn't say which photograph. It didn't say who missed it. The entire department. The state investigators who had passed through like a storm years ago. Mercers and deputies and techs who are dead, retired, or trying not to think about this stretch of road anymore. The first pass shows her nothing. The second, a faint irritation at the back of her skull. The third, a thought. I am looking with 2021 eyes at a 1992 image. The tech back then didn't have the software they do now. Fine. She calls the current lab in, hands them the original negatives, the high-res scans that were eventually made when they digitized old cases. "Humor the letter," she says. "If this is a prank, I want to know it's a smart one." Hours later, in a darkened room, a forensic technician leans over a monitor, fingers flying on the keyboard as he adjusts contrast, sharpens, zooms. Pixels bloom, edges clarify. The photo on screen is the one they all know. Allison on the ground, hair spread out, trees behind her. He works the right side of the frame, where the fallen log rests, dark and half-forgotten. When he boosts the exposure there, something surfaces. A curved smudge on the bark. Not big, not clear. Just a crescent of darker grey against the darker grey of wood. He enhances again. Noise increases, but so does definition. The smudge resolves into something structured, a partial loop of ridges. Not shadow, not random. A fingertip. He calls Voss in. "That your something?" he asks. She steps into the glow of the screen, folding her arms. The tiny shape stares back at her, invisible for nearly 30 years until someone decided to taunt them with it. "Can you pull it?" she asks. "Maybe," the tech says. "It's partial. It's old, and we're trying to recreate ridge detail from a 30-year-old photo, not a lift. But I can try." He works, he traces, he extrapolates. What emerges is not a full fingerprint, not a miracle that will plug neatly into a database and spit out a name, but a pattern, a swirl, a ridge path that's distinctive enough to be recognized if they ever see it again. A ghost of a touch, preserved not in dust, but in light. Word spreads through the building fast. The phrase Washington 1992 cold case floats through conversations like a headline that never went away. The sheriff steps into the lab, peers at the screen, shakes his head slowly. "All this time," he mutters, half to himself. "All this time that was sitting in our own evidence." Voss doesn't let him sink into regret. "Someone else knew it was there," she says, tapping the letter on the table. "Knew enough to poke us with it. Either they were involved back then, or they've been studying this case longer than we have." The sheriff frowns. "We told nobody about reopening the archive for redigitizing." Then the pool of people who could know what's in these photos is small, she replies. Smaller than the whole town, smaller than the county. This letter isn't just about arrogance, it's about access. They send the reconstructed partial into state and federal systems anyway, because that's what you do. You roll dice even when you know the odds are bad. As expected, nothing pings. The fingerprint belongs to no one with a recorded arrest in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, or any federal jurisdiction. Whoever touched that log either stayed very clean or never existed in the part of the world that Fingerprints cares about. For a moment, the case threatens to slide back toward the familiar slope of frustration. Old evidence, new tech, same dead end. Then another envelope arrives, same plain white. Same careful handwriting on the front, addressed to the Silver Ridge Sheriff's Office. No return address, no postal code beyond the sorting mark from a regional distribution center 100 miles away. The receptionist doesn't even open it this time. She walks it straight to Voss. Inside, a photograph, glossy and modern. A shot of the overlook on Riverbend Road, the one Allison used to visit on Friday nights. The angle is deliberate, framing the wooden guardrail against the valley drop-off, town lights distant and blurred like dying stars. A hand is resting on the railing in the foreground, fingers curled loosely, as if caught mid-thought. You can't see a face or a body, just that hand. And under it, written in black marker along the bottom edge, the view hasn't changed. Voss stares at the photo, heartbeat ticking in her ears. The grain of the wood, the faint streaks of weathering, the ridges of skin against it. Lab, she says, voice flat. Now. They dust the original location first. The real overlook, the real railing. Powder blooms under the brush. Smudges appear, dozens of them, from years of tourists and teenagers and locals leaning over to look at the drop. But one stands out when they lift it. A partial loop, with the same distinctive swirl pattern they reconstructed from the photo of the log. The tech matches them side by side on the screen. Same finger? He says. Same person, 30 years apart. The press conference comes the next day. Cameras crowd the small room, reporters smell blood, or at least story. The sheriff steps to the podium, Voss at his shoulder, the photo of Allison Kearns behind them as a reminder and an accusation. He announces that new forensic review has uncovered a latent print from the original crime scene, and that the same fingerprint has now appeared at a known location associated with the victim. He doesn't mention the letters. He doesn't mention the second photograph. He doesn't say the word taunting, but it hangs there anyway. A reporter from Seattle leans forward, microphone outstretched. So you're telling us the killer went back to the scene after nearly 3 decades? We're telling you, Voss says evenly, taking the question, that the same individual who was present when Allison's body was staged was physically at the overlook within the last few weeks. Whether that person is the killer, an accomplice, or a witness who's only now decided to come forward, that's what we're going to find out. The headline that night writes itself. Washington, 1992, cold case reopens. Mysterious fingerprint links past and present. The town hears it in living rooms, sees it on phones, feels it in the tightness of their chests. People who were young once and are older now remember the fog, the sirens, the way their parents wouldn't let them walk alone for months. The question shifts from who did this to something more unnerving. Has he been here the whole time? Leads begin to trickle in again, the way they do whenever a cold case makes the news. Some are honest. Some are attention seekers. Some are the same men from 30 years ago who want once more to be the center of the narrative. Voss treats them all as if they matter, for the simple reason that one of them might. Night after night, she sits in the interrogation room with a tape recorder running, asking old questions in a new voice, listening for a slip, a crack, a detail that doesn't line up with known facts. Between interviews, she goes back to the file, back to the autopsy photos, the scene sketches, the timeline that refuses to stay closed. Allison leaves Mercy Ridge at 11:02 p.m. Her car reappears at her apartment lot at 11:21 p.m. Her body is found miles out of town at 6:17 a.m. It is not lost on Voss that there is more than enough time in those blank hours for someone to drive her out, kill her, arrange her, return her car, walk away. She flips through hospital records, looking for anyone whose shift ended when hers did. Nurses, doctors, interns, orderlies, security. The name that keeps coming up is one she doesn't expect. Dr. Nathan Roebuck, neurologist. On duty that night, supposedly charting in his office when Allison left. No notes recorded after 10:45 p.m. Terminated from Mercy Ridge a year later for a vague entry in his file. Unprofessional conduct, unspecified. No charges filed. No forwarding address listed. His personnel record is thin. Too thin. The hospital lawyer stonewalls. Privacy, confidentiality, liability. But the pattern is there. A doctor with access, a missing hour, a disappearance that starts and ends in his workplace. Voss requests his file under court order. While she waits, another envelope arrives. This one is different. Smaller. Heavier. The same handwriting on the front, but no words inside. Just a Polaroid. An old one. Color faded, edges curled. It shows a dim hallway. White walls. A door with a metal plaque that reads, Dr. N. Roebuck, Neurology. The timestamp, in smeared red digits at the bottom, reads, The night Allison vanished. On the back, in that same carved, careful script, is one more sentence. You're closer than you think. For a long moment she doesn't move. The hum of the fluorescent light, the distant ring of a phone at the front desk, the low murmur of voices in other rooms, all of it drops into the background, muffled, like sound under water. All she can see is the Polaroid in her hand, the washed-out color, the empty hallway, the metal plaque on the door. Dr. N. Roebuck, Neurology, and that smeared red timestamp at the bottom, burned into the white border like a taunt, 02/11/92, the night Allison disappeared. You're closer than you think. The words on the back feel heavier than ink. Somebody stood in that hallway with a camera, pointed it at that door, and pressed the shutter the night a 24-year-old nurse left work and never came home. 30 years later, that somebody is still watching, still mailing pieces of the past into the present like time bombs. Voss puts the photo on the table, next to the printouts, next to Allison's smile. For the first time since reopening the file, she feels it, not just as a puzzle, but as a presence. Someone is moving around the edges of her investigation, one step ahead, always just out of sight. Someone who knows exactly how much to give and how much to withhold. Someone who wants this old wound reopened, but only on their terms. She calls the sheriff in. He leans over the table, squints at the timestamp, breath coming a little shorter. That's inside Mercy Ridge, he says. That's the old neurology wing before they remodeled. That door was ripped out years ago. So this photo was taken before they changed the floor plan. Voss replies, We're not looking at some fan recreation from last month. We're looking at a photograph from the night of the crime, now in the hands of someone who won't sign their name. The sheriff rubs his jaw. Security cameras didn't cover that hallway in '92. No digital keycard logs, no swipe trails, just skeleton staff and trust. Not for everyone. Voss says, Roebuck got fired a year later. Unprofessional conduct. You think he took the picture? The sheriff asks. You think the letter writer is Roebuck? I think, Voss says, that the only people who had reason to photograph that specific door on that specific night were either internal investigators or someone who wanted to remember exactly where they were when everything changed. They go to Mercy Ridge together, not as patrol, not as emergency, but as a reminder that the past still has questions. Hospitals are good at burying things under renovations and new paint, but the bones of a building rarely lie. The neurology wing is different now, open plan, brighter, filled with newer machines and quieter shoes. But down one side corridor, past a door marked Maintenance, the angle is the same. The hallway in the Polaroid lives here, just with different colors, different doors. The ghost of the past layout lingers in the way the ceiling dips, the way the light falls. An administrator meets them with a carefully neutral smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "We've already provided every file we're legally obligated to share," she says. "Patient privacy, staff confidentiality. This isn't about charts," Voss cuts in. "This is about a crime scene you never realized you had. Someone took a photo in this building the night a nurse was killed. We need to know who had a camera, who had access, and why that image exists outside any official file." The administrator bristles. "That was 3 decades ago. We had no digital visitor logs, no CCTV in every corridor. We had security guards and sign-in sheets. Half the people who worked here then are retired or dead. I can't conjure records that don't exist." "Then point me to the ones that do," Voss says. "Roebuck's full file, internal memos regarding his termination, any investigation reports, old security rosters. The more you give me, the less this hospital looks like a place where predators can disappear between shifts." It takes a court order, a layer of legal pressure, and a quiet threat about what a subpoena looks like on the evening news, but eventually the floodgates crack. In a windowless basement room that smells of dust and old toner, a clerk wheels out boxes with dates stamped in black along the sides. 1990, the weight of years. They find Roebuck's personnel file first. It's thinner than it should be. A CV with impressive credentials, a glowing hire letter, performance reviews full of phrases like brilliant but aloof, poor bedside manner, limited interaction with nursing staff. Then a sharp turn. An incident report. A nurse complains about his behavior during night rounds. Too close. Comments that slid between clinical and personal. Nothing that would make a jury gasp. Everything that makes a gut go cold. The internal investigator's memo is clipped to the back. Roebuck was counseled, told to maintain professional boundaries. 6 months later, another complaint. This time from Allison herself. The paper is thin, her words precise. Unwanted attention, repeated invitations to discuss her future in his office after hours, questions about her personal life. The hospital response: "We will monitor. No evidence of illegal behavior. No further action recommended." 3 months after that, Allison is dead. Voss reads the lines again. Her jaw tightens. "They buried this," she says. The sheriff's voice is low. "They minimized it. There's a difference. One sounds deliberate. The other sounds like negligence that got someone killed. In this case," Voss says, "those might be the same thing. Farther down in the file is the termination notice. Roebuck was let go quietly, for cause, after failure to adhere to behavioral recommendations outlined in prior counseling. There are no details, no police involvement, no requirement to report him to any licensing board. He signed the paper, walked out, vanished. Does he have a current license? The sheriff asks. Voss is already typing. Medical boards, state registries, professional listings. Roebuck is a ghost. His last documented address is a P.O. box in a city across the mountains, closed years ago. No death certificate, no active practice, no tax records under that exact name. It's as if he stepped off the edge of the map in 1993. Assume he changed his name, Voss says. Assume he went somewhere his reputation couldn't follow. That's still a trail. Somewhere he paid rent, somewhere he used a social security number. He has to exist on paper unless he's in a shallow grave in these woods too. Back at the station, she hands the problem to analysts who live for this sort of thing. People who can follow data across states, across decades, across the changing architecture of digital storage. In the meantime, she can't just sit and wait. Cold cases don't thaw because you stare at a screen. They thaw because you push. She goes back to the nurses, the ones who are left, Some still work at Mercy Ridge. Older now, their hair grayer, their eyes deeper set. Others answer from small houses at the edge of town, hands roughened by years of work or softened by years away. They all remember Allison. She was quiet, one says, stirring sugar into coffee she doesn't drink. But she saw everything. You couldn't sneak a syringe out under her watch. She double-checked meds, double-checked charts. Some doctors hated that about her. Roebuck, Voss asks, a pause, a look toward the window. He was intense, talked down to people, smiled without warmth. Nurses tried to stay out of his way. Allison didn't. What do you mean? She called him out, the nurse says. Once in the hallway, he was about to give a patient the wrong dosage. She corrected him in front of staff and the family. He didn't like being embarrassed. You could see it in his face, like a crack. He said she was young, she'd learn. But after that, he'd find reasons to keep her late. Invite her to his office. I told her not to go. She said she could handle herself. Did you ever see them together off shift? Voss asks. What? The nurse says. In the parking lot. He was standing too close. She was leaning away. When he noticed me watching, he smiled like nothing was wrong. But she didn't look at me. That's how I knew something was. Another nurse remembers something else. A conversation in the break room a few days before Allison died. She asked if I believed in gut feelings, the woman says, eyes wet. Said sometimes when she left the hospital at night she felt like someone was following her, not right behind, just somewhere, watching. Did she say who? Voss asks. She wouldn't. The nurse replies. She just said, he thinks I don't see him, but I do. I asked if she wanted to report it. She laughed it off. I wish I'd pushed. Each interview adds a piece that feels horribly, frustratingly obvious in hindsight. An arrogant doctor, a vulnerable nurse, a pattern of harassment, a failure to intervene. In a less careful story, that would be enough. Fade to black. Roll the word solved across the screen. But Silver Ridge doesn't get clean arcs. They get Polaroids in the mail from someone who was there and isn't done yet. Voss pins Roebuck's name under Allison's on the board and draws a thin red line between them. She adds another line from his name to the Polaroid photo of his office door, time-stamped confession without a face. Then another line from the door to the overlook, to the fingerprint on the rail, to the log by the body. A web is forming, but the spider is still invisible. 2 nights later, as she's leaving the station long after midnight, her phone buzzes. Unknown number. The display throws a pale light over the parking lot. She answers. Voss? Static. A gentle hiss, like someone cupping a hand over the receiver. Then a click. Dead air. She stands there, keys in hand, scanning the shadows between parked cars. The lot is empty. The building behind her glows in patches. For a second, she imagines a pair of eyes behind every dark window. When she reaches her apartment, there's an envelope propped against her door. She doesn't touch it for a full minute. Her heart has gone from slow and tired to fast and high, a siren in her chest. The hallway is quiet. No footsteps, no voices. Just that envelope leaning against the frame like a stray animal waiting to be let in. She slides on gloves, picks it up. Same weight, same cheap stationery, same precise block letters spelling out her name and nothing else. Inside, another photo. This one hits harder than any crime scene image. It's a shot taken from a distance, grainy but clear enough. It shows Voss herself standing at the overlook railing from a few days earlier, head bent over her phone, coat collar turned up against the wind. You can see the valley behind her, the tree line, the faint line of the highway. In the corner of the frame, zoomed and blurred, is the silhouette of another figure just beyond the guardrail. In the trees, watching. On the back, the handwriting is familiar, steady as always. Cold case, detective. Sometimes the past watches back. For a while, she just listens to her own breathing, harsh in the small apartment hallway, pulse thudding in her throat loud enough to drown everything else. The photo sits in her hand like a hot coal, her own shape, caught off guard at the overlook. the familiar slant of her shoulders, the curve of her wrist. And in the trees behind her, half lost in shadow, a sliver of something vertical that shouldn't be there. Too straight to be a trunk, too narrow to be a rock. A figure. Watching. She forces herself to move. The training kicks in like muscle memory. Step back from the door. Check both ends of the hallway. Nobody. The motion sensor lights hum overhead. The stairwell is empty. No sound of footsteps retreating, no door clicking shut. Whoever left this didn't run. They slipped away long before she ever pulled into the lot. She calls it in as a potential threat, but she doesn't use the word scared. That's not the story she tells herself. Not yet. She says compromised perimeter, possible surveillance, unknown party. Within 20 minutes, the sheriff is at her apartment, hair damp from a rushed shower, expression carved out of something harder than worry. Uniformed officers sweep the building, the parking lot, the alley behind the dumpsters. Nothing. No stray cigarette butts, no fresh footprints, no witnesses who saw someone loitering with a camera. Back at the station, the envelope goes into an evidence bag, the photo too. Latent prints, DNA on the flap, analysis of the film stock. She watches the techs work, the ritual of powder and tape and cameras, the ballet she's seen 100 times on other cases. This time there's a strange intimacy to it. The victim isn't just a name in a file or a face on a board. It's her, standing at a rail in an image she didn't know was being taken. When the first report comes back, the room seems to lean around the words. There are prints on the envelope, yes. Smudged, overlapping. The postal system leaves its own fingerprints on everything. But beneath the noise, beneath the processed handling, there's another pattern, faint and incomplete, and horribly familiar. The same partial loop, the same ridgeline swirl, the same mysterious fingerprint they pulled from the fallen log by Allison's body. The same pattern from the overlook railing. 30 years, 2 crime scenes, 1 unseen hand, and now that hand has touched her door. The sheriff exhales, a slow, controlled release. So it's not just some armchair sleuth with a scanner and a flair for drama, he says. It's him, whoever he is. He's running this like a one-man press release, not just a killer. Voss says, staring at the print comparison. An editor. The FBI liaison on the case doesn't bother to hide her concern when she arrives the next morning. Officially, she's there to assist on a historic homicide with new forensic leads. Unofficially, she's there because a federal database now ties the same unknown fingerprint to a 30-year-old body dump, a recent trespass at an old crime-linked location, and direct contact with the lead investigator. Serial killers love attention. This feels like something worse. Sustained attention. They convene in the briefing room beneath the hard stare of Allison's photo. Voss lays out the timeline again, this time with a new branch that ends at her doorway. Letter 1. You missed something in the photograph. Letter 2. The view hasn't changed. Letter 3. Roebuck's door. Letter 4. A shot of Voss with a silhouette behind her, and the line that makes everyone in the room feel the floor under them shift just a little. Cold case, detective. Sometimes the past watches back. He's escalating, the liaison says. He's closing distance. He's moved from talking about the case to making you part of it. Maybe I've always been part of it? Voss replies. She doesn't mean it literally, but the words hang there, heavy. Everyone in this town is part of Allison's story, whether they want to be or not. 3 decades of whispered warnings and locked doors have a way of pulling people into the narrative. They tighten security around Voss. Patrol cars start drifting by her building on irregular intervals. She gets a second lock on her door, a temporary camera in the hallway, the kind of precautions usually reserved for judges, witnesses, or people whose names appear on lists in angry forums. She doesn't argue. Privately, she moves her bed away from the window. In the middle of all this, the analysts call with the first real breakthrough on Roebuck. It starts as a tiny note in a forgotten registry. A change of address form filed in 1994, a move from Washington to a small town in Montana. The name is the same, but the middle initial has been trimmed. The Social Security number matches. From there, a thin paper trail, a rented apartment, a P.O. box, a library card. No recorded medical practice. No official employment beyond a short-lived teaching stint at a community college. Then, around 1998, the trail fractures. He stops leaving imprints on bureaucracy. Could he be dead? The sheriff asks. Maybe, Voss says. But if his hand is still leaving fingerprints, his story isn't over. She drives out to visit one of the people who would know if Roebuck ever truly left the profession, an old neurologist who was listed as Roebuck's mentor during his residency years. Dr. Emil Harrow lives in a quiet house on the edge of a lake, the kind of place people choose when they want to be left alone with their regrets. He opens the door slowly, leaning on a cane, eyes sharp despite his age. I wondered how long it would take, he says, before she even shows her badge. Inside, among the shelves of medical textbooks and framed diplomas, Harrow talks in measured bursts. Roebuck was brilliant, he says, one of the sharpest minds he'd seen. He could see patterns in scans most doctors missed. He didn't just see the tumor, he saw the story behind it. There's a pride in his voice when he says it, shaded now by something else. Shame. Fear. What happened? Voss asks. He enjoyed control. Harrow says simply. Too much. He liked knowing what people were going to do before they did. Patients, staff, everyone. It wasn't enough to heal. He wanted to orchestrate. She asks about Mercy Ridge, about nursing staff, about Allison. Harrow claims not to remember her by name. She was one of many. But he remembers the reprimand, the quiet investigation, the rumors. The administration wanted it to go away, he says. Hospitals are made of liability as much as they are concrete. A promising doctor with a few complaints is easier to keep than a scandal. Do you think he could have killed her? Voss presses. Harrow looks at his hands. Old hands. Steady hands. I think Nathan believed consequences were for other people. And I think he believed he understood fear better than the people who felt it. That's a dangerous combination. On her way out, he stops her at the door. You opened this, didn't you? The old case. You're the one he's writing to. Voss doesn't answer. He used to say something in rounds. Harrow murmurs. About lesions. If you stare at something long enough, it stares back. I thought it was just a line. Now I'm not so sure. Back in Silver Ridge, the lab finishes something else. They've taken the best version of the partial fingerprint, run enhancement algorithms, rebuilt it ridge by ridge. It's still incomplete, still more shadow than substance. But with some luck and clever math, they have enough to compare against any 10-print card they can find. One of the analysts, a quiet woman who lives on caffeine and puzzles, stays late one night and does something that isn't strictly in the manual. She digs into old medical licensing archives, looking for anything on Roebuck that might include biometrics. Most didn't, back then. Some did, in certain states, for certain positions. Luck, or something like it, drops a hit into her lap at 2 a.m, a scanned fingerprint card attached to an application Roebuck filed when he considered a position out of state. The job never materialized. The card, however, is pristine. She runs the comparison twice before calling anyone. When Voss arrives at the lab, hair still damp from a rushed shower, the match percentage is glowing on the screen, a number higher than she allowed herself to hope for. It's him, the analyst says. The print from the log, the rail, the envelope, they're Roebuck's. There's enough partial overlap to rule out coincidence. The mysterious fingerprint belongs to your doctor. For the first time, the cold case has a name attached to the shadow. 30 years of doubt condense into a single, devastating line. Nathan Roebuck was at the scene when Allison's body was staged. Nathan Roebuck returned to her overlook. Nathan Roebuck is either the person leaving letters now or someone close enough to use his prints as currency. The announcement goes public because it has to. The sheriff stands before microphones again, the words heavier this time. New forensic analysis has linked a fingerprint recovered from the original scene of Alison Kearns's murder to Dr. Nathan Roebuck, a former physician at Mercy Ridge Hospital. The same fingerprint has also been found at a location she frequented and on recent correspondence with law enforcement. We are now officially naming Dr. Roebuck a suspect in this case. The headline runs before the ink on the press release is dry. Washington, 1992 cold case solved. Mysterious fingerprint ends decades of doubt. For the town, for the people who watched themselves grow old around Alison's frozen smile, it feels like a verdict. Someone they can blame. Someone they can punish, even if he's nothing more than a ghost in another state. But Voss doesn't feel solved. She feels watched, because while the world digests the name, asks where he is, whether he's alive, whether extradition or prosecution or closure is possible, another envelope appears. This time it lands not at the sheriff's office, not at her apartment, but at Mercy Ridge Hospital, addressed to the ones who looked away. Inside, folded around a thin plastic hospital ID card with a photo of a younger Nathan Roebuck, is a single scrap of paper. No meticulous sentence, no riddle. Just 3 words, each spaced out like beats in a heart monitor. You were wrong. The hospital administrator doesn't scream when she opens the envelope. She doesn't drop it, doesn't call security, doesn't faint the way people do in cheap reenactments. She just stops breathing for a second, the kind of pause that feels like a skipped heartbeat. The words on the outside, to the ones who looked away, are enough to pull 30 years' worth of guilt out of the carpet and into the fluorescent light. By the time she pries her fingers off the flap, her palms are slick. The ID card falls into her hand first. Thin plastic, edges scuffed, the photo slightly off-center. Dr. Nathan Roebuck, in his 30s, hair darker, gaze flat even in the forced smile. Mercy Ridge logo in the corner. It looks like it never should have left the building. Underneath is the scrap of paper, folded once, torn from something larger. 3 words, written with the same slow, deliberate care the letters have all carried. You were wrong. She doesn't need anyone to tell her what it means. She remembers the complaints, the meetings, the soft-voiced warnings from nurses. The decision to monitor instead of intervene. She remembers the day they let Roebuck go with no report, no letter to the board, no police call. Unprofessional conduct, nothing more. She remembers convincing herself they'd done enough. Now a dead nurse's case has his name stamped on it, and his old ID is sitting on her desk like Exhibit A in a trial that's starting 30 years too late. She calls the sheriff's office with a voice that tries, fails, to sound detached. By the time Voss arrives, the ID and the note are sealed, bagged, logged. The administrator stands off to the side, arms folded tightly as if holding herself together. He must have kept it, she says. Took it when he left. Now he's sending it back to taunt us. Voss doesn't reply. Not yet. She studies the badge through the plastic, the way the laminate is bubbled on one corner, the tiny crack along the top edge of the photo where it's bent over time. It looks worn, old, handled. You were wrong, she reads softly. About what? The administrator laughs once, humorless. Take your pick. The lab pulls the ID apart molecule by molecule. They swab the edges, the back, the picture. They lift prints from the plastic and the paper. Most belong to the administrator and the officer who secured the scene. Their references are easy to clear. Beneath them, faint but undeniable, are the same familiar lines, the same partial loop, the same ridged swirl. Roebuck's fingerprint again. The analyst looks up from the comparison, puzzled and a little tired. It's almost like he wants credit, she says. He keeps signing his work. Voss doesn't say what she's thinking out loud, or someone wants us to believe he is, because there's a problem. It arrives not with a dramatic reveal in a smoky room, but as a dry email from a records office 2 states over. When she opens it, she doesn't feel the big jolt at first, just an odd, cold hollowness. Attached is a death certificate. Nathan Elias Roebuck, male, white, age 43, found dead in his Montana apartment in 2005. Cause, apparent suicide, overdose compounded by alcohol. Coroner notes the body was discovered weeks after death. No signs of foul play. No family listed. Next of kin, none. The line where notify should be is blank. Voss reads it twice. Then she pulls the old address from the file, double-checks county records, confirms the signature on the form against other documents. It's all maddeningly legitimate. The man who left Mercy Ridge under a cloud disappeared into another life, then quietly died in it 16 years ago. But his prints are still turning up in fresh fingerprint powder. She prints the certificate and pins it under his ID on the board. Roebuck's face stares out at her from 2 different ages, 2 different endings. Suspect and corpse, alive on paper and dead in ink. The sheriff paces in front of the board, hands on hips. If he's been dead since '05, he didn't put a hand on that overlook railing last month. Voss nods. And he didn't stand outside my apartment or drop off a hospital ID he hasn't worn in 30 years. The lab says those lifts are his pattern, he insists. The match isn't imaginary. I'm not disputing the match, she says. I'm disputing the timeline. He stops pacing, looks at her. Somebody planted them? Somebody had access to his prints. She says, a card, a mug, a record, something with his touch on it that got archived, forgotten, then dug up and used like a stamp. They could transfer ridges to surfaces if they knew what they were doing, if they were patient enough. You're talking about forgers, he says. Print engineers. That's rare. So is a man killing someone in '92, staging her, resurfacing in 2021 with letters, and then turning out to have been dead for 16 years. Her tone doesn't rise, but the edges sharpen. Either the ghost story is real, or someone is using him as a mask. The FBI liaison is less subtle. Or the death certificate is wrong, she says, when they loop her in. Misidentification, fraud, staged death. It happens. Dental records matched. Voss replies. Blood type. Old injury noted from a residency car accident. The body they buried under Roebuck's name was Roebuck. Whatever he did or didn't do to Allison, his story stopped in that apartment. Then this is either a very twisted fan, the liaison says, or an accomplice who decided to take a bow. They dig into Roebuck's Montana years. Neighbors remember a quiet man who kept to himself, paid rent on time, rarely had visitors. Some recall the occasional late-night walk, the light burning in his window at odd hours. No one remembers women coming and going. No one remembers him bringing home co-workers. There are no local missing women whose bodies turned up staged on highways in the same time frame. If he killed Allison, he either stopped, moved the rest of his violence somewhere else, or never escalated beyond that one terrible act. Voss stares at the board again. Allison's photo, the log, the overlook, her own image at the rail, Roebuck's door, his ID, his death certificate. The note. You were wrong. What if that sentence isn't aimed at the hospital? What if it's aimed at them? She starts listing the wrongs. Wrong to assume the fingerprint was enough. Wrong to assume the person who touched the log in 1992 was the one who killed Allison. Wrong to assume the person sending letters wants justice. Maybe they want something else. A correction. A rewriting. Cold case. Sometimes the past watches back. The past, in this instance, has handwriting neat enough to be surgical. She looks closer at that last scrap of paper. The tear is jagged on 3 sides, clean on one, torn from a larger sheet, trimmed on one edge. The fibers show faint blue lines at an angle when held to the light. Notepad stock, not printer. Cheap, generic, the kind you buy in a pack. The ID card bothers her, too. Not the photo, not the crack. The lanyard hole. It's too clean. No grime around the edge. No ghost mark of a clip. It's like someone polished it before sending, wiped history off the surface, leaving only what they wanted seen. Run the handwriting again, she tells the analyst. Not for identity, for pattern. Pressure, slant, ink flow. There's something about the way they write. It's slow, careful, patient. That takes time. You think it's a medical hand? The analyst asks. Doctors write fast, not slow. Doctors write prescriptions fast, Voss says. They write notes for themselves in ways other people can't read. This feels like someone who wants to be read, someone used to filling out forms that matter. It's not much, but it keeps her from accepting the word solved just because a banner on a news site says so. Silver Ridge, meanwhile, embraces the narrative. Small towns like stories with villains they can point to. Nathan Roebuck is perfect for that. The disgraced doctor, the predator in Scrubs, the man who walked through their hospital hallways with a scalpel in one hand and something rotten in his chest. It doesn't matter to them that he died miles away, alone and unpunished. They have a name now. They use it when they talk about the fog, about Allison, about why they still drive the long way around Highway 7. Families approach Voss in grocery stores, at gas pumps, in the parking lot of Mercy Ridge. They thank her. They tell her it's a relief, finally, after all these years. Some of them cry. Some of them squeeze her hand. She nods, accepts the gratitude like evidence, feeling the weight of their need pressing against the doubt in her gut. At night, she dreams of the overlook. She dreams of standing at the rail, hearing footsteps behind her, turning to see not a man, not Roebuck, but a doorway. The neurology door from the Polaroid, standing upright in the trees. When she opens it, the other side shows Highway 7, fog curling around a still body and a fallen log. The same fingerprint on both sides of the frame. She wakes with the taste of metal in her mouth, and the uneasy certainty that she is missing the thing the letter sender is desperate for her to see. The next break comes from an unexpected corner. A retired cop from another county who sees the news, hears Roebuck's name, and feels his own cold case shift in its grave. He calls the tip line, leaves a message so polite it almost gets buried. When Voss finally listens to it, there's something in his voice that makes her rewind and call him back immediately. He meets her in a coffee shop off the interstate, hands thick, shoulders stooped, eyes still sharp under heavy lids. On the table between them, he lays out a file that looks too thin to be as heavy as it is. 95, he says. Different town, different state. Young woman found off a frontage road. Clothes neat. No obvious injuries. Ruled asphyxiation without clear cause. No fibers, no DNA, pre-modern testing. Sound familiar? She doesn't answer. It does. Back then we thought it was a robbery gone wrong, even though nothing was missing. He continues. But there was one thing that always bothered me. The position of the body. I called it posed in my notes. Got told not to use that word in press. Too suggestive. Too theatrical. He slides a photograph across to her. The scene might as well be Silver Ridge in black and white. Young woman. Clean clothes. One shoe missing. One arm extended as if reaching. The trees are different. The road is wider. But the feeling is the same. We never found a suspect, he says. But we did have one person of interest, a doctor who had moved into town the year before. Did some consulting at the local clinic. Kept to himself. Weird vibe, you know the type. No proof, no arrest. He left suddenly about a year after the body turned up. No forwarding address. Voss already knows the answer before she asks. Nathan Roebuck, he nods once. Different middle initial on his paperwork, but same face. Once we saw your press conference. I thought I'd imagined the resemblance. Then you dropped his name. 30-year-old cold case in Washington. Similar staging. Similar victim profile. I figured you'd want to see our ghost, too. She asks about fingerprints. About prints lifted from the scene. He shakes his head. We collected. But chain of custody back then was... He grimaces. Let's just say thinner than it should have been. Some boxes went missing in a move, others degraded. Any print lifts we had that might have matched your pattern are probably sitting in a landfill somewhere. Still, there it is. Another body, another road, another town that never got closure. Roebuck's shadow stretches wider now, not just across Silver Ridge, but across state lines. The headline that declared the Washington case solved feels premature in her mind, and in this new light, cruel. On the drive back, rain needles the windshield. The highway curves through trees that look too familiar. Every guardrail feels like a marker. Every patch of mist looks like a place where someone could step out and rearrange the story. When she gets to the station, another envelope is waiting on her desk. Her name, neat as ever. On the front. Her heart spikes and then evens out. She's almost numb to the ritual now. Gloves on, flap cut, evidence bag ready. Inside there's no photo this time, just a single line on narrow-lined paper. Not solved, just named. Not solved, just named. The phrase follows her out of the building, down the empty streets of Silver Ridge, through the wind that cuts between houses like whispers from 30 years ago. The fingerprint doesn't match Kincaid. Roebuck is dead. Yet the letters keep coming, which means one of two things. Someone else has been behind this the entire time, or someone is helping a ghost keep his story alive. Voss drives aimlessly, headlights carving through the fog that never seems to lift from this town. The roads out of Silver Ridge are too quiet at night, too patient. Her reflection in the windshield looks older than she remembers. She tells herself she's just tired, that the insomnia and the caffeine and the haunting cadence of those envelopes haven't really started to eat through her edges, but she doesn't believe herself anymore. The radio murmurs static. She flips it off and listens instead to the hum of the tires. In that silence, she almost hears a rhythm, not quite a sound, more like the memory of one, the soft click of a camera shutter, the scrape of a pen across lined paper, the deliberate surgical patience of a mind that wants control. She takes the long way home, looping past the overlook. The fog hangs low, white and thick and still. The guardrail glints faintly under the headlights, the metal scarred from years of weather. She steps out of the car, the cold air biting her skin. The valley below is invisible, swallowed by cloud. Her breath fogs in front of her. She places a gloved hand on the rail, tracing the spot where they lifted the fingerprint weeks ago. Her pulse ticks faster, not from fear, but from that thin current of understanding that comes before dread. She talks to the night because there's no one else who can answer. "You've been leading me in circles," she says softly. "You send me Roebuck's ghost, and then you tell me I'm wrong. So what do you want then? What's left?" The fog shifts, slow and sinuous. For a second she thinks she sees movement near the tree line, something tall, still, almost human. Then it's gone. When she gets back into the car, there's an envelope on the passenger seat. No sound, no broken window, no open door, just there, sitting neat and white and waiting for her. Her throat tightens. She doesn't touch it at first. Watches it instead, half expecting it to move. It doesn't. She opens the glove box, pulls out an evidence bag, slips the envelope inside without touching it. She doesn't open it until she's back at the station, surrounded by fluorescent light and the faint comfort of other human voices. The handwriting is the same, the neatness, the cold precision. She tears the top carefully, slides out the contents. One sheet of paper, folded twice, and something heavier inside. An old photograph. The paper first. 2 sentences. "Mercer kept something from you. The truth isn't in the files." Her stomach knots. Sheriff Bill Mercer, the original investigator, the man who haunted this case for years, who died in his sleep in 2018, who went to his grave still calling it the one that got away. She opens the photograph. It's a shot of the sheriff's office evidence room, the old one, before renovation. In the corner, half lit by the flash, is a cardboard box labeled in marker 9207 Kearns Allison. The same box Voss opened on her first day. But there's something different in this photo. Something that wasn't there when she looked. On the top of the pile, next to the envelope of crime scene photos, is a small cassette tape in a clear case. The label reads, Interview, Mercer, 3/12/2005. There was no tape like that in the box when she went through it. She feels the air thicken around her. The letter's meaning is suddenly clear. The truth isn't in the files she's been given. It's in something that never made it into them. She checks the evidence logs. There's no record of a tape dated 2005. The last logged entry for the Kearns case before Mercer's retirement was in 1999, an unrelated DNA comparison. After that, nothing. She digs deeper, through digital backups, transfer forms, inventory sheets. Nothing. It's as if the tape never existed. She tries Mercer's family next. His wife passed before him, but his son, Evan Mercer, still lives 2 towns over, a high school history teacher. When she calls, his voice is wary. I knew this would come back, he says quietly. He never stopped talking about her, you know, even when he forgot other things. Some nights he'd wake up thinking he was still out there on Highway 7. Did he ever mention a recording? She asks. A tape, maybe from 2000 There's a long silence. Then, yeah, he made one. Said it was his insurance policy. Insurance for what? For what he didn't tell the papers? Evan says. He said there were things he couldn't put in reports. Things the town didn't need to know. But he didn't want it lost either. He kept the tape in his study. After he died, I boxed everything up. The sheriff's office took most of it. I kept a few things. Photos, his badge, the old recorder, but not the tape. You sure? Another pause. He told me if anyone ever came asking the right way, not a reporter, not a thrill seeker, but someone who actually wanted to listen, I should give them what's left in the recorder. I thought he was talking nonsense. Maybe he wasn't. He gives her an address. When she arrives, the Mercer house feels like a time capsule. The furniture is the same as in the photos from old newspaper profiles. The faded green couch, the cracked leather chair, the collection of police plaques that look heavier than honor. Evan leads her to a small room that smells faintly of dust and cedar. On the desk sits a portable cassette recorder, yellowed with age. This was his, Evan says. He used to record notes instead of writing. Said it helped him think. Does it still work? He shrugs. Haven't tried in years. Battery's probably corroded. She takes it, carries it back to the station like evidence. Because it might be. In the lab, they clean the contacts, slide in new batteries. The recorder whirs, clicks, and then a voice crackles out of the tiny speaker. Sheriff Mercer's voice, older, hoarser, but unmistakable. If anyone's listening to this, he begins, it means I'm not around to answer questions anymore. Maybe that's for the best. Some things you can't explain without people thinking you've lost your mind. Voss leans closer. I went back to the Overlook last week. The voice continues. I know I shouldn't have, not this long after. But something's been bothering me. I thought I was losing it. The lights in the trees, the feeling that someone's still there. But then I found it. Something I didn't notice before. There's the sound of wind on the tape. Static. His voice dropping lower. There was a second set of footprints in the mud that night. Not fresh. Older. Smaller. Like someone had been there before the body was placed. We photographed the wrong ones. We thought they were animal prints. They weren't. Voss feels the hairs on her arms rise. Mercer's voice shifts, more agitated now. I asked around quietly. Nurses, orderlies, people who worked under Kincaid and Roebuck. One of them said Allison wasn't the only one who kept notes. Another girl was doing the same. Younger, student volunteer. Megan Kearns. Voss's breath catches. Her sister. Mercer's tone grows ragged. She left town after the funeral, said she couldn't stay. But there's no record of her enrolling anywhere. No credit trail. Nothing. I tried to reach her once, years later. The letter came back unopened. Someone told me she'd been seen near the hospital late one night, standing by the memorial. I went out there, didn't find her, but I swear to God I heard her voice. He pauses. The sound of wind fills the tape again. Then quieter. They said Roebuck was the monster. Maybe he was. But I think someone else was behind it all. Someone who knew how to make men like him do what they were told. Someone who's still out there. If anyone ever finds this, don't stop at the doctor. Click, end of tape. Voss sits in the lab long after the recorder goes silent. The room feels colder. The pieces of the case scatter and rearrange in her mind. Allison's list. The second set of footprints. Megan's disappearance. The mysterious letters written by a hand that knows too much. She presses play again, listening to Mercer's voice until the static swallows it. When she finally looks up, the clock on the wall reads 3:14 a.m. She closes her notebook, locks the tape in evidence, and steps outside for air. The night is black and thick and starless. Across the parking lot, she sees movement by her car. A flicker. A shape. Maybe just wind-stirring trash. Then, in the glare of the security light, she sees it clearly. An envelope, pinned under her windshield wiper. Her hands shake as she pulls it free. Inside, a single Polaroid. The photo shows the same cassette recorder she just played, sitting on the desk in the Mercer house before she arrived. Underneath, the same carved handwriting. You finally heard him. The photo is still in her hand when she realizes the street around her has gone utterly silent. Not the natural quiet of a late hour, but the thick, listening kind that happens before a storm or a scream. Her own reflection stares back at her from the Polaroid's glossy surface. Wide eyes, drawn mouth, the red-blue pulse of the security lights washing over her like she's the one being photographed now. You finally heard him. Someone was there before she arrived at the Mercer house, watching her, waiting for her to find the tape. Whoever it is knew exactly what she'd discover, and they wanted her to hear every word of Mercer's voice before making their move. She slides the Polaroid into an evidence sleeve, locks it in the trunk, and forces her hands to stop shaking long enough to start the car. The highway back to Silver Ridge is a strip of darkness between two walls of forest. The fog comes and goes, a pale river crawling across the asphalt. She catches herself checking the rearview mirror every few seconds, convinced she'll see a pair of headlights following her, but the road behind stays empty. Still, the sense of being followed clings to her like static. When she finally pulls into the sheriff's lot, she sits there with the engine idling, letting the headlights burn away the darkness in front of her until she can breathe again. Inside, the station hums with its usual late-night emptiness. Vending machine glow, paper smell, the ghost of too many unsolved things. She lays the Polaroid on her desk under the harsh light. The edges are clean. No fingerprints visible. No dust. Whoever is sending these knows exactly how to handle evidence. The first text message hits her phone at 3:47 a.m. Unknown number. He told you about the sister. Her blood runs cold. She stares at the screen, thumbs hovering. Voss, who is this? The reply comes instantly, as if the sender has been waiting. She's the one you should have been looking for all along. She fires back a dozen questions, but the responses stop. The number goes dead, untraceable, disposable, already gone. She doesn't sleep that night. She sits in the dim light of her office and rereads Mercer's words over and over. Another girl was doing the same. Younger, student volunteer, Megan Kearns. Megan, Allison's sister. The girl who vanished from the story 3 decades ago and stayed vanished. The girl everyone assumed was just collateral damage to grief. The girl who might have seen more than anyone realized. When the morning shift drifts in, Voss is already combing through databases. School records, DMV archives, hospital volunteer logs. Megan Kearns' paper trail ends abruptly in the summer of '93. No graduation, no employment, no change of address. It's like she stepped out of the frame and took her shadow with her. Then one hit blinks onto the screen. A driver's license renewal in another state, Oregon, dated 5 years earlier. The photo is blurry, low resolution, but the name is right. Megan Kearns, 49. The face in the picture looks leaner, older, harder. The eyes are unmistakable. She's alive. Voss calls the Oregon address listed on the renewal form. The number rings to a small business, a bookstore in a coastal town called Drift Harbor. The woman who answers sounds wary but polite. "Yes, Megan's here sometimes," she says. "She doesn't work much these days, keeps to herself." "Can you tell her Detective Voss from Silver Ridge, Washington, is trying to reach her? It's about her sister Allison." The silence on the line stretches too long. Then the woman says quietly, "You might not want to come looking for her, Detective. Some things don't want to be found." The line clicks dead. 2 hours later, Voss is on the road. She doesn't tell the sheriff she's leaving. She just drives. The miles roll under her in a steady rhythm. The sky lightens, turns gold, then gray again. The Pacific mist creeps in off the ocean long before she sees the town. Drift Harbor is the kind of place that doesn't appear on maps unless you zoom too far. Weathered houses, a single diner, gulls crying above the surf. The bookstore is easy to find, a narrow building wedged between a bakery and a bait shop. The windows are fogged from the sea air. The bell over the door chimes when she pushes it open. A woman looks up from behind the counter. Mid-40s, streaked hair tied back, blue-gray eyes sharp as glass. For a heartbeat, it's like seeing Allison again. The same structure of the face, the same shape of the mouth, but older, harder, tempered by the years. "You found me faster than I thought," she says. "Megan?" The woman nods. "You must be the detective. I wondered when you'd get here." Voss studies her. "You know why I'm here?" "I do," Megan says, glancing toward the window as if checking for eavesdroppers. "You found Mercer's tape, didn't you?" Voss hesitates. "You sent it." "I didn't send anything," Megan says quietly. "But I knew someone would. He told me before he died that he'd left something behind. A breadcrumb. I guess you followed it." Her voice is calm, but there's a tremor under it, like something brittle straining not to break. "Why disappear?" Voss asks. "Why stay hidden for 30 years? Megan exhales. "Because when I realized what they were doing, I knew if I stayed, I'd end up like her." "Them?" "Roebuck wasn't the only one," she says. "You've figured that much out." "Dr. Kincaid," Voss says. Megan shakes her head slowly. Not just Kincaid. He was the face everyone trusted, the father figure, the moral anchor. But there were others. A handful of doctors, orderlies, administrators. They called it the Mercy Protocol. It started with terminal cases. Patients suffering, families begging for peace. But it became something else. They decided who deserved to go. People who drained resources, people who didn't fit. Allison started noticing. So did I. She wrote everything down. I made copies. Voss leans in, heartbeat rising. "You have those copies?" I did. But someone broke into my apartment the night after Allison died. The files were gone. A week later, a man came to my door, said he worked for the hospital, told me it would be safer if I left town. So I did. Who was he? I never got a name, but he had a birthmark on his neck, right side, like a crescent. Voss freezes. She remembers Kincaid, the faint crescent scar under his collar when he'd adjusted his shirt at the door. Megan watches her expression change. He's still there, isn't he? Still pretending to be the good man. "He's retired," Voss says. "Volunteers at a clinic." Megan lets out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. "They never stop. They just find quieter ways to do it." She reaches under the counter, pulls out a small box. Metal, dented, old. She sets it down and opens it. Inside are cassette tapes, a few photographs, and a single envelope, yellowed with age. "I kept what I could," she says. "One of the orderlies smuggled these out for me before he disappeared. Listen to them carefully, Detective. There's one name that never made it into the files." Before Voss can ask more, the bell over the door rings again. Megan's eyes snap to the sound. A man in a hooded jacket steps in, shaking rain off his sleeves. Nothing about him seems unusual, until she sees the faint mark on his neck. Kincaid. He looks older, thinner, but unmistakable. Megan, he says softly. You shouldn't have talked to her. Voss's hand goes to her weapon. Dr. Kincaid, step back. He raises his palms, expression calm, almost pitying. Detective, you think you've uncovered something new. You haven't. You're just catching up to what the world has always been. Mercy isn't a crime. Tell that to Alison Kearns. Voss snaps. He glances at Megan. Your sister didn't understand compassion. She thought every death needed a villain. She was wrong. Sometimes the kindest act is the one no one else can stomach. Is that what you told yourself every time you played God? Voss says, her voice sharp enough to cut the air. He smiles faintly. We didn't play God. We simply stopped pretending he was watching. The room feels smaller, the air charged. Voss's pulse drums in her ears. Kincaid takes a step forward, slow, deliberate, and she draws her gun. Don't, she warns. He stops. You won't shoot me, he says softly, because you need me alive to make sense of it. You need to know who else was in the room when Alison died. The words slam into her. You were there. I was always there, he says. She wasn't supposed to suffer. Roebuck panicked. I cleaned it up. Megan gasps, stepping back, a hand to her mouth. But you already know that, Kincaid continues. Because you've been talking to someone who told you where to find the tape. Someone who's been watching both of us. Voss's mind races. The letters, the Polaroids, the timing. Who? Kincaid's eyes soften, almost tender. You really haven't figured it out yet. Before she can respond, glass shatters. A gunshot punches through the window from the street. Kincaid jerks back, collapses against the counter. Megan screams. Voss dives, dragging her down. Another shot, splintering shelves. Books explode into confetti around them. When the silence returns, Kincaid is slumped on the floor, blood spreading through his shirt. Still alive, but barely. Voss crawls to the window, peering through the jagged frame. The street is empty. The fog eats everything. No car engine, no footsteps, just the hiss of rain on pavement. She turns back. Megan is shaking, clutching the metal box to her chest. He wasn't lying, she whispers. There were others, and one of them knew how to erase everything. Voss looks at the dying man on the floor, then at the door, then at the fog outside. Whoever fired those shots didn't come to kill Kincaid out of mercy. They came to shut him up. And that means the case isn't just unsolved. It's still alive. Kincaid's breath rattles. He looks up at her, blood on his lips, and says one last thing before the light goes out of his eyes. Check the autopsies, detective. Then he's gone. Megan stares, frozen. What does that mean? Voss answers quietly. It means this was never about who killed your sister. It's about everyone who helped make sure she stayed dead. Outside, the fog thickens, swallowing the lights of Drift Harbor until it's impossible to tell where land ends and sea begins. And somewhere out there, in that shifting grey, another figure is already watching, camera in hand, waiting for the next shot. Under the street lamp across the road, an envelope flutters against the curb, rain soaking its edges. Voss steps into the storm, heart hammering, and reaches for it. On the front, in perfect, patient handwriting. Cold case, detective. The dead don't speak, but we do. The envelope is already damp when she slides it into a plastic bag, rainwater bleeding the edges of the letters like they're trying to escape the paper. Cold case, detective. The dead don't speak, but we do. The we crawls under her skin. Not an individual, not a lone obsessive. A chorus. A group that has been here the whole time, moving in shadows, signing their work with a dead man's fingerprint and a word they keep twisting like a knife. Mercy. Paramedics haul Kincaid out on a stretcher, sirens tearing at the quiet harbor night. He's still breathing when they load him, eyes fluttering, but by the time they reach the ER 2 towns over, he's a body with a sheet over his face and a tag on his toe. No bedside redemption, no last-page confession. Just 3 words that landed like a code. Check the autopsies. Then silence. Jurisdiction arguments flare before the blood is even dry. Oregon cops want control of the scene. Washington files are suddenly inconvenient baggage. Voss doesn't bother posturing. Let them fight over who signs the paperwork. She cares about the body in the next room and the trail that led them both here. She flashes her badge, drops Kincaid's name, says the one thing that cuts through all the territorial noise. He's a suspect in an unsolved Washington homicide. That word still moves people. Unsolved. It opens doors no warrant can. They let her into the viewing room while the medical examiner works. Through the glass, she watches gloved hands move with clinical detachment over a man who spent decades playing God. The irony tastes sour. She's not here to gloat. She's here to listen. The pathologist is thorough. Bullet path, organ trauma, blood loss. None of it matters for Allison. But when the ME steps away, Voss hits the intercom. "Can I ask you something off the record?" The ME glances up, already wary. "Depends on what you're asking. You ever see autopsies that felt off?" She says. "Cause of death technically plausible, but the story underneath didn't sit right." He snorts softly. "You're describing half the suspicious death calls in rural America, detective. I'm talking patterns." She presses. Same doctor, same hospital, same phrasing, over and over. That shuts him up. He thinks. "You're from Silver Ridge, right? Mercy Ridge Hospital?" "Yeah," he sighs. "We used to get transfers from them. Bodies they didn't want to handle in-house. Not many, but enough. I remember their paperwork being tidy. Too tidy. Scripts you could tell were copy-pasted. Complications of existing condition. Non-responsive to treatment. All medically accurate, all impossible to argue with, and yet..." He shrugs. "There was one nurse who called a few years back. Said she thought some of their old reports were wrong. I told her to put it in writing. Never heard from her again." The word nurse lands like a dropped match. "What was her name?" He frowns, digging through memory. "Didn't say. Just that she'd worked nights. Sounded scared." He looks at Kincaid's body on the table. "If your guy was signing off on those, maybe you're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not who killed your nurse. Maybe it's how many people he helped disappear before someone decided they'd had enough." "Check the autopsies, detective." Back in Silver Ridge, daylight does nothing to soften the edges of what happened in Drift Harbor. The news hasn't caught up yet. No screaming headlines, no breaking banners. For a few hours, the story exists only in the thin space between Voss, Megan, and the man in the morgue. It won't stay that way. She drives straight from the state line to Mercy Ridge, the hospital's glass facade reflecting a sky that looks ready to cave in. She doesn't bother asking this time. She arrives with a warrant, signed on the strength of Kincaid's death, and a judge who's heard enough whispered rumors about mercy protocols to want his conscience clear. The administrator meets her in the records room, jaw clenched. "Do you have any idea what you're implying?" She hisses. "I'm not implying," Voss says, sweeping a flashlight beam across shelves of labeled boxes. "I'm investigating. There's a difference. Somewhere in here is the truth about who died in this building and why, and I don't care how much liability you see when I say that." They start with the year that matters most. 1992, rows of autopsy reports, internal review memos, cause of death statements sent to families. They cart boxes up to a conference room and spread them across tables. The smell is paper and old air, and the faint metallic tang of things nobody wanted to open again. Allison's file is the control. Asphyxiation, non-specific. No trauma, no obstruction, no clear path. The coroner at the time shrugged in medical language and moved on. Voss lines up 10 other cases from the same 3-month window. Patients described as